Hello, I'm Jonathan and welcome to this clip, which is a preliminary introduction to the InstallFree Management Console. Now, the InstallFree Management Console, as you can see, is designed to run in a Microsoft Management Console environment, and this MMC environment was actually virtualized. So the IFMC is a virtual application by itself, so you don't need to install it. Now, the IFMC provides an inheritance tree. Here on the left, you can see the two trees, the Active Directory tree and the InstallFree file share tree. And once you click on an object somewhere in the tree, you get the details view in the right pane. Now, you see all these user listings here in the Active Directory. They are actually read directly from the Active Directory schema. And down here, you can see the IFV applications tree, which is really the main tree under the InstallFree file share tree. And this tree is used to show and organize the separate AOD files as they are organized into IFV application packages and into containers. Now first, let's review the AD tree. As you can see, the AD tree is the first tree that you have in IFMC. And you can see all the different listings as they are read directly from the AD schema. Now, what the AD tree allows you to do is to assign IFV objects, IFV applications that is, to a parent object, let's say in this case domain controllers. And once you assign a higher object with IFV applications, the IFV applications will then be inherited by the children objects. And you can see this blue background here means that the IFV object was actually inherited from a higher level, and you can also see where it was inherited from. It is also important to note that group objects are shown in the Active Directory tree in IFMC as folders, and the different members of a group are listed in a form of files filed under a group. This pretty much concludes the AD tree, and before we go into further details, I want to now introduce to you the InstallFree file share tree, or more precisely, the IFV applications tree. Now, the IFV applications tree is the first branch of the InstallFree file share tree, and it is used to present and manage application, updates, expansions, and dependencies created from separately packaged AOD files. Now, the IFV applications tree is again a tree structured in an inheritance hierarchy model, and you can see all the different AODs as they are organized into different logical objects, and you can see here applications containers. These are objects that are used to group certain applications together and are also used for different configuration and management needs. Now here, under the applications container, you can see IFV application packages. And IFV application packages pretty much sums up the entire IFV application package structure. Because first, you can see here the application AOD, Adobe Reader 9.2 in this case. You can see that you can add dependencies AODs. These are AODs that are loaded prior to the application. For instance, if you need a GTK runtime environment or a .NET framework. Then you have update AODs, and updates are really patches made out of two versions of the same application, and they converge at runtime on the endpoint. And of course, you got expansions, which are again separately packaged AODs that usually contain add-ons, and in this case, a hotfix. You can see here in Mozilla, for instance, I have an update. This is Mozilla 308, that's the original AOD. You can see an update for Mozilla Firefox 355. And under the expansions, you can see a separately packaged Adobe Flash Player. And again, you have to remember that all these sub-AODs dynamically bind into the parent application AOD at runtime on the host machine. Another thing I want to emphasize, and this brings us back to the inheritance feature of the tree, is that if, for instance, I was to add an expansion AOD to the General Office Tools applications container, this expansion AOD would then be inherited by all the different applications that inhabit the applications container. So if, for instance, I have a security sniffer application and I was to add it to expansion AODs here, it would then be propagated down the tree to all the different applications. And this also goes for the expansions AODs of the IFV applications tree root. And then if I would put an expansion AOD here, it would then be inherited by all the applications found in the tree. Now, let's take a look on the system tree. Now, as you can see, the system tree consists of several branches. You got the IFV engines branch, and IFV engines are the piece of software that provide IFV applications with their runtime execution environment. You have the bridges branch, and the bridges are the active component on the endpoints. These are actually virtual clients running on the endpoint, and they manage everything from shell integration to the download and management of the IFV applications as they were configured in IFMC. You also have the language bases, and language bases provide IFV applications with language resources, and they also usually harbor a virtualized instance of Internet Explorer. And this is very useful for many different scenarios, and we will go through them in future clips. Under the InstallFree language base, you can see the IFMC tree, and the IFMC tree allows you to update your IFMC version or roll back to a previous version. Now, under here you can see the license tree, and I won't show you the license tree now because it is only used in cases where you are not using a volume license. And let's go right down to the IFMC administrators tree, and this is a very useful tree for large organizations where you have many IT managers that each have their own role and each have their own permissions. And what IFMC administrators tree allows you to do is add administrators, give them specific roles, and even allow them to see only specific parts of IFMC and manage them. Under the IFMC administrators tree, you can see the system AODs. And system AODs contain the AODs that control the logic of several InstallFree options such as self-provisioning, URL redirect, and shell execute launch. Each are used for different use cases during deployment. And now, let's go down to the reports tree, and I'm just going to go really fast to the reports tree because we're going to have a separate video explaining the reports tree. The reports tree consists of the event viewer, and the event viewer is really only a log that contains all the different things that were done in IFMC. Under that, you have statistics reports, and the statistics reports show you data that was aggregated by bridge virtual clients on endpoints. And you can see here several built-in statistic reports that you can use, but you can also create your own reports and also export the data into external databases. And under here you have the IFMC reports, and this is a very important tree because it is used to locate non-default engines, bridges, and bases that were allocated to different AD objects. And this pretty much concludes the general overview of IFMC. Now, I want you to be sure to see the other clips about IFMC that will teach you the different aspects of the inheritance and, of course, how you do different configurations and allocations of IFV objects to AD objects, etc.